Hello and welcome to another episode of the MLS UK show. I'm Henry Hewitt, and as always I'm joined by...
Elliot Holman, frantically getting myself in position and getting ready to jump in. I kind of forgot this was being filmed. Hi, sorry, I was relaxing a little too much.
Yes, thank you to everyone who listens on your podcast provider, but if you want to see us do this, then you can do via YouTube. Right, let's get started then. There's loads to talk about in MLS over the last few weeks, and the first thing is going to actually be what has happened at the weekend with the Vancouver and Inter Miami game. Now, for those who don't know, and if you are watching or listening to this, you probably do, but Leo Messi, Luis Suarez and Sergio Busquets did not travel to Vancouver for this game. Now, that's fine. It's Inter Miami's prerogative. If they want to rest them, they can do. It's a long way to travel. It's different time code, zones, all of that. However, when Vancouver have sold 55,000 tickets, do Miami have a duty to play them? Elliot, what's your thoughts on this?
No, they don't. Not at all. I think if the league had introduced an extra DP slot for Miami or had kind of funded some of the, I know there's rumours about other clubs putting money in and stuff, but if they'd have had a real handout from MLS to help them, I think it would be different. But the league are, telling us, and we can only believe it, that Miami did it all by themselves. So they're their players. They can do what they want with them. Messi and Suarez were actually at Ushuaia in Miami. So, on a table together. They could probably afford it. I looked at the prices of tables at Ushuaia in Ibiza just the other day, and I can't afford it. But they don't have to play them. Vancouver should be filling BC Place with people queuing up to see our very own Ryan Gold instead. So.
Well, you have a point. I mean, I'd go and watch those players, and I think the stadium's very nice as well, so I would pay to watch them. My friend John, who lives in Vancouver, was saying that because when they announced Wrexham were going to be playing there in a pre-season friendly, well, for Wrexham anyway, mid-season for Vancouver, I texted him going, "Are you going to go watch the game?" And he then told me the price of the tickets and said probably not. It would be probably cheaper for him to fly home and watch the game at Wrexham than to actually watch it in Vancouver. But I would still, I'd pay to go to Vancouver to watch the Whitecaps at BC Place. But I agree with you. I mean, yeah, it depends which way you're looking at it. If you're looking at it from developing the league and trying to get more people watching MLS in Canada and America, then of course those people are going. They're not going to, with the greatest respect, and he did play very well, but they're not going to watch Robert Taylor. They're going to watch Leo Messi. So maybe they have a. I don't know. Obviously, it's a synthetic pitch as well, so it's not a grass pitch. Maybe that had something to do with it. But maybe they should have played at least one of them. They played Alba, but should they have played Busquets or Suarez as well, or Messi? I don't know. They've got a match in the week against Atlanta, so maybe that's on the minds. But I think for me, growing the league, perhaps they shouldn't have rested all three of them. But then again, Messi, Suarez and Busquets do play for Inter Miami. It is down to them, and they definitely enjoyed themselves in the meantime, didn't they? So I'll tell you, let's move on to Miami then and how they've started. The top of the East, they've started very well. How big of a win was this basing on the fact that those players weren't playing? Does this show that the squad is able to go and win Supporters' Shield?
Yeah, absolutely. We asked questions about this very early on, didn't we? We mentioned that, as you just touched on, the synthetic pitches, Messi's not going to be playing on them at his age, and neither is Suarez with his knee problems. They aren't going to be playing on these pitches regularly, if at all. It's not a surprise to me that they didn't travel. I think you'd see the same at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, for example. I really did sort of say at the start of the season, this is where we get to see the real Miami. Fantastic that they've got Messi and Suarez, but it's kind of like a football manager, fantasy football situation, isn't it? Like they're a cheat code. How are they without them? And they really started to show their mettle, which is really important. The other thing that I mentioned previously is that's still really relevant now, I believe, is that Cincinnati have still played a game less and have a better points per game ratio. So they are going to push them. They're going to be pushed all the way. And that's going to be without Messi sometimes. It's going to be without Suarez and Busquets sometimes and Alba. So it's really important that they can go to Canada, pick up 3 points, come back, play a midweek game, because Cincy are going to be hot on their heels.
Well, they are, aren't they? And there's about a 7 or 8 point gap from them two to the team in third. But we're actually going to talk about New York City FC in a moment. But just a note on Cincy then. They are running Miami close, play an extra game, win that. They do go top of the East. How impressed have you been that they have managed to keep up with them? Because for me, looking at, I think they've won 7 out of the last 8. A lot of them are by 1 goal. So they really getting gritty victories and knuckling down and getting over the line, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And that it doesn't matter how you win games. I think sometimes we've been guilty of looking at squads and going, oh, they're going to steamroll aside. But actually, Cincinnati this season have just kept it tight. Like you say, won games by 1 goal, 2 goals. And actually, that's been really, really effective. It's not actually an approach that we're used to seeing in MLS. We're used to seeing goals, and it's actually really refreshing. I think last season and this season we started to see less goals being scored as defenses get slightly better and teams invest in defenders a little bit more than they ever have done before, because it's important. So really, really interested to see how this battle's going to go. It seems to be a 2-horse race thus far.
It does, and I don't see that changing. Although the way New York City FC have been playing recently, I think they've won the last 3 or 4 matches. They perhaps could have a strong second half to the season and push them close. You wanted to talk about NYCFC. They've picked up some really impressive victories, haven't they, the last few weeks?
Yeah, sometimes we did this last season when my daughter was born and when your son was born. You have to hold your hands up and go, oh, I missed that. If you're a bit busy in your life, MLS in the UK can be quite a challenge. There's rarely a kickoff before 12:30 in the morning, so sometimes you can miss things. And for the last 3 weeks, I've been really busy. Weddings, stag do's, it's just that time of life. And I just had a look at the standings. I think it was yesterday morning, and just thought, wait a minute, where have NYCFC come from? Because we had conversations on this podcast only a month ago where we were looking down at the bottom and we were saying, oh, Seattle struggling, Portland are struggling, some teams that we're used to doing really well, or in recent years, Orlando struggling, New York City, what are they doing down there? All of a sudden they're third. And we talked about the fact that I think it took them 4 games to get their first win. And then they went another 4 games before they won again. And so they were languishing at the bottom of the standings. All of a sudden, here they are. We've been bigging up Miami, bigging up Cincinnati. It's just only right to say fair play to New York City FC, who have come from behind, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, look at the recent results. Of course, they got the result of the weekend at New England Revolution, which on paper, the fact that New England Revolution are in a bit of a mess at the moment, isn't a spectacular result, but you've still got to go away. You've still got to get that win. They also did it at Philadelphia. They fought to the end quite literally against Toronto and got a win there. They won the Hudson River Derby, at home as well. So these are big victories. These are, big. You look at Philadelphia and Toronto in particular, they are tough grounds to go to. They're tough teams to play against, and they go in and winning. So they're really on a roll at the moment. And, a lot was said, obviously, of what happened at the end of that Toronto game. But for me, it really showed that, there may be stuff that's coming out later on about Nick Cushing and stuff like that. But for me, you look at the way the team are and the way the club are, they're really fighting at the moment to push up the table. And, I know I said before, they'd 7 points off Cincy, 8 points off Miami. Who knows? Another run, if they win their next 4 games, like they've won the last 4 games, they could actually get closer to those, and it could become a 3-horse race in the East.
Yeah, won their last 4 games, 1.73, I think, points per game now, which has been hugely affected by those early games. So they've really turned it around, and you just think if they continue that form and the other two drop a few points here and there, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how the season finishes up. And but I think by the time we do the next podcast, the season will be 50% done, which is crazy.
It will, yeah. And as an Atlanta fan, I was kind of wishing it was 100% done, because I'm already done with this season. Obviously, I'm looking at it with my Atlanta specs on. You're looking at it as more of a neutral in this. Pineda's time has surely come to an end. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to. I don't know if this has ever happened before to Atlanta, since you've done the podcast and we've focused on them a little bit more because you're an Atlanta fan. But I'm trying to look at the standings on my laptop where you can see the titles of the columns at the top and see Atlanta's, but I'm having to zoom right out so that I can see both and it can actually make sense because they're so far down. But 12th in the East. And to be honest with you, 7 losses from Atlanta, that's one more than Orlando, which is impressive, trust me. It's just not. Ultimately, that franchise had a huge start and it was unsustainable. They were unbearable as well. We've all talked about it. It was the norm that this Atlanta social media account would just post "the Kings have arrived," as Joseph Martinez, steps off the bus. It was the arrogance was off the charts, off the scale, and that was always going to have to. They were always going to have to dial that down. They were always going to have a few seasons where they were in mediocrity, but the front office at Atlanta have not signed up for 12th. In the East. It's not good enough. The roster is way better than that. And so you're right, but I think Pineda's time has to come to an end. And they managed to hold on to a World Cup winner, by the way. That was the biggest bit of business behind Leo Messi. The two Argentinians were the stories in closed season. Everyone presumed that Atlanta would be without him in the middle of the field, and they're not playing like they've got a World Cup winner in the squad, let's put it that way.
No, they're not. And it's just really poor to watch, to be honest. Very poor. I mean, obviously, the people looking at, looking at him and thinking he's going to be the person that's going to drag this team on. But it's just, they've not won since the 31st of March. We've got into Miami next away. It just doesn't look like it's going to improve at all. And you're right, you look at the table and Atlanta already, I think 8 points off that bottom guaranteed playoff spot, and it's just not good enough. And, it's been a few years now for Pineda and a few years of transition, really, from that Atlanta 1.0 to this Atlanta 2.0. And there's times over the last few years where they have looked and you've gone, this is the old Atlanta, even at the start of this season. Now, I know Giakoumakis hasn't played the last few games, but they really seem to be not clicking at the moment. Guzan has had a few errors for the last few weeks, and it just seems that the whole team is not clicking at all. And it's not good enough. And Pineda, I think, has had enough time. This is the first time on this podcast I've said he needs to go, because I've said, well, give him another season or give him till midway in the season. He's always seemed to keep his head above water. But this time, I think, no, it's... unfortunately, his head is now underwater, and it's time for him to be fired and Atlanta to move on. Because I think for me, it's not a complete disaster. There's the bones there, there's the structure there of a good MLS team. I just don't think it's clicking at the moment.
Does he go mid-season for you? Is that any benefit?
I think he goes now, to be honest. I'd give him maybe the Miami game and see if he can pull something out of that one. I doubt, especially with the fact that you'd expect the likes of Messi and Suarez to come back in. But yeah, I don't see it happening. I think, do they wait a few weeks? Do they wait to the Leagues Cup, fire him, or do they bring someone in for Leagues Cup? Do they kind of use this time now to, I don't know, keep him, see if he can do anything, but then change and make a quick change? Who knows? But it's not good enough. And you just look at the table at the moment and you just see that if Atlanta lose against Miami and the teams below win, Atlanta could be second bottom of the East, and we've definitely not seen that before.
Yeah, I didn't quite enjoy it, admittedly. But I feel the same. I said the same last season about Oscar Pereira at Orlando. It wasn't good enough. They got a run together and scraped into the playoffs, but just getting found out now. You can't start really, really poorly and try and play catch up, because sometimes you're just not going to be able to play catch up, and that's exactly what's happening. They're above Atlanta, but it means nothing that they're also having a dreadful season. So we're kind of both in the same situation. Any names that could come in?
Well, this is it. You look at the head coaches that Atlanta have had. Of course, they had Tata Martinez at the start, and he did it amazingly well. Then they tried to change it, bring in De Boer. Remember that failure? That seems like a million years ago now. And now Pineda. So they went for that sort of MLS experience, but at a sort of an assistant level. I don't know. Do they bring in someone from Europe, or do we go, with a South American influence still? I can't imagine that Almeida will stay that long, so you can't really have him in your plans. Are you looking then at a Giakoumakis and thinking, well, we need to keep him happy, bring in someone who knows how to get the ball to the striker, to someone who's playing that pivotal role? Personally, I can't think of many names that I can think of, because I don't think it's someone from within. I think it has to be someone from outside to change it. I don't really know. I guess if they've tried the South American, maybe go back to a European. I wouldn't have someone like Phil Neville or Wayne Rooney come in, so maybe stay clear of England, maybe Spain, maybe Italy, somewhere like that.
David Wagner's free.
Yes, I saw Norwich sacked him, but he got into the playoffs. So, and you told me at the start of last season that you did not expect Norwich to do that. So maybe he's got history of taking a team who don't expect anything into the playoffs. So maybe it could be him.
Well, we talked about how tight it was at the top of the East, but and we mentioned that the points per game was the important thing to look at. In the Western Conference, Minnesota played 2 games less than RSL, and the points per game 1.93 for RSL, and Minnesota 1.92. It's so close. These two are going for a proper ding-dong battle, and I'm so here for it. How refreshing is this in the West to see some different teams up there?
Yeah, exactly. And LA Galaxy, I know have played more games, but they're on there's the same amount of points as Minnesota as well. LAFC are lurking. Austin, it's nice to see them up there. Seattle have improved the last few weeks. So this is the exciting one for me. Yeah, the East is exciting, and when you look at Cincinnati or Miami, but to look at this one, you can't really call it at the moment, and it's really refreshing. But how well are all those teams doing, Minnesota and RSL?
It's like when you play Football Manager with MLS, you get teams, and you're like, would that happen in real life? RSL running away with... it's so nice. It's so refreshing. It's exactly what we want from this league. I'm so happy to see it. And, the conversation about the LA teams continues as well, because they're running each other pretty close so far, but LA Galaxy just have the edge.
Yeah, and I think LA Galaxy have developed a bit more of an edge on the pitch as well with the players. You look at Ricky Puig and Ben Olsen having a bit after that game on Saturday night. LA Galaxy beating Houston, and Ricky Puig for me is really stepping up at the moment. He's becoming that sort of, I don't know, that player that I feel like the team needs. Someone who's gonna, of course, he scores goals. He's a talented player, but someone who's gonna give a bit back, give a bit of bite. I mean, you look at his hair. I personally think that the orange in his hair, maybe that was for Houston. Maybe, whoever they play next. Who do LA Galaxy play next? They play Dallas. Maybe it'll be red and blue in his hair. Maybe it's to taunt the other team. This is the new LA Galaxy. They really show him their worth now.
It's a really good point. They've drawn 7 games. Seems really high. I think St. Louis are the only other team who have drawn as many games in the West. They just haven't actually won any. That's the trouble. So that's how they're doing it. They're grinding out points. LAFC have actually got higher points per game. So this is a ding dong battle that's going to continue. But it's really good to see them pushing each other. And LA derbies right now are going to be hot.
They are, yeah. And just a note on RSL, we spoke about them a few weeks ago, but they've continued their run. And on Saturday, 3-0 down against Dallas away. And for all season, people have been looking at RSL and going, yeah, Arango's great, but what else? What have they got? Who's going to step up? Arango didn't score. They equalised 3-3. Different range of goals, but all with quality. It was fantastic to watch. I'm really here for this RSL team.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, it's so refreshing to see somebody different at the top and kind of doing things in a different way as well. They are the top scorers in the league, in the West. But what I wanted to talk about was the overall goals in games. Okay, so I've got the table for the East and the West, and each team is ranked by the average amount of goals in their games. So it can be for or against. And I wondered how many of the top 5 in the East and the West you might be able to get, thinking about who has goals in their games. Some teams are there because they just score a lot of goals. Some teams, not so much.
Well, I mean, you got to stick Miami in there because they've had a few 5-0s and 6-1s or 6-2s. So Miami will be in there for the
Miami
East,
are top
surely.
of the East.
And then I guess you look at the games what they happen to be against. So Red Bulls.
Clever. Red Bulls, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are 4th.
The other one was Orlando, but I don't. Would Orlando be in? I'm trying to think of. Orlando have had a few.
Orlando are not in. They're 11th.
Yeah, I don't see Orlando being in. I guess you put RSL in there, being top of the West.
So in the West, RSL are 9th, believe it or not.
Wow. Okay.
The team top of the West are there because they concede a lot of goals.
Let's see. San Jose.
San Jose are 2nd. We talked about this team. I think maybe in the last podcast they played SKC and had a bit of a. The game was really, really going one way, and then it went completely the other.
I'm trying to think now. I can think of matches. I can't think of when we actually did the podcast. Let's see. Okay, so right, Portland. They've been there.
Portland are top in the West. So the West is Portland, San Jose, Colorado, SKC, and LA Galaxy. And in the East, Inter Miami, Montreal, who concede a lot of goals, nearly twice as many goals as they score currently. Philly, New York Red Bulls, and Toronto, of course, probably aided by this weekend, I imagine. Yes, amongst others as well. They've had quite a few, haven't they? So that's interesting. I like there's this real mix of sort of. It's not just the top 5 or the bottom 5. There's a mix with some mid-table teams in that. So I like that. Unsurprisingly, from this coming from a Norwich fan, the most boring team in MLS, Charlotte. Statistically. And there's a link there with the managers. 1.8 goals per game on average for Charlotte. So they scored 14, conceded 13. Well, we're not conceding many. Let's look at the positives of that. And Dean Smith has come in and helped him. Right, before we go, we better mention Columbus Crew. They're, of course, in the Champions League, the CONCACAF Champions League final against Pachuca of Mexico. It's what an occasion this is. It's a one-off game this time. Columbus having to travel, so very difficult. But they have played the last 3 games away and they have won them. So they are on form. Can Columbus do it? Can they bring
the CONCACAF Champions League home to MLS?
Of course they can. We've already seen them lift a trophy in the last 6-7 months, so they can do that. I think as well the fact that it's away can be intimidating. However, in MLS, I think they've won as many. In fact, I think their record in MLS is exactly the same for home games as away. So they've had as many wins, as many draws, and as many losses at home as they have away. So it doesn't seem to be affecting them right now, which, let's take all of these positives and get behind them. They play great football. We've talked about this so much on the podcast, and we want back-to-back wins in CONCACAF. It'd be amazing.
Yeah, it will be. And I think, we've discussed it before, is that as MLS guys, we don't care who wins, really. We just want MLS to be winning these competitions, because for so long, obviously, they didn't. You look at the Columbus's form at the moment, you even look at the weekend against Orlando, and, Rossi's finish for that second goal was sublime, and they have got those players. Wilfred Nancy, of course, such a good head coach, and you can tell, I think going to Monterrey and getting that win in the semi-finals really showed me that this team we all know they've got something about them, but to do that, to go and win 3-1, has given me so much confidence going into this one that they can go and do it. So good luck to Columbus crew, and hopefully, because if they get through, of course, they'll be in this FIFA Club Championship thing that they're doing as well. So that'll be fun. We can maybe finally get our MLS versus Premier League team matchup.
Who in the Premier League would you want to see Columbus play?
In terms of quality, or in terms of actually giving them a chance to win the game?
Quality.
Well, you want to put them up against the best, I guess, than Man City. But in terms of actually winning the game, it would probably have to be Man United.
I want to see Columbus v Man City in a tiki-taka death match. It's like, who can do it best? Probably Man City, but Columbus are on their way.
Yeah, and I think, I think it'd be, it'd be fun to see. And I think, as we go into the World Cup in 2026, the more MLS teams we can sort of get in these competitions, winning the CONCACAF Champions League, and then going into the World Club Championship that they're having, I think it'll be great. And I think it's just, again, it's another, just to market the league and just to have the, eyes from Europe on it is. So good luck to Columbus. I really do hope that they can bring it home, and to do it as well over there, because I know Seattle 2-leg won it and they're at home. Columbus, to go there and do it would be fantastic. Absolutely.
Go on, the boys in yellow. Always the teams in yellow. Always.
Exactly. Well, just for this. Right, well, that's it from us this week. Thank you very much for watching on YouTube, and if you have been, don't forget to click the notification bell and subscribe as well. We had I think it was our second or first highest rated, highest viewed episode on the last episode, and that's not because I put Inter Miami and Messi in the title. It's purely coincidence. But thank you if you watched that and you're now viewing this one. If you are listening on your podcast provider, don't forget to subscribe. But if you are going to leave us a rating, if you are going to leave us a review, Elliot, there's one rule and one rule only.
There is indeed. It's 5 stars only. It's all about LA Galaxy style.
It is, yes. Right, well, until next time, I've been Henry Hewitt.
And I've been Elliot Holman.
See ya.